You're listening to The Foundation of Wellness, a refreshing take on diet and lifestyle, with Jessica Dogert, a registered dietitian nutritionist, and Marisa Moon, a primal health coach.
Hey you guys, my name is Jessica and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and you can learn all about me at my website, jessicadogert.com.
Hello, this is Marisa Moon. I'm a certified primal health coach from marisamoon.com and the food blogger from mylongevitykitchen.com.
So this episode is episode 27, and it's all about the many benefits of drinking good old H2O. And what we are here to tell you today might be surprising, so turn it up and let's get started.
I learned a lot while I was researching this episode and the next one. And I think like what we're sharing today and next week is going to be so valuable for the listeners, because if you're like me, you might actually struggle to strike this balance between being dehydrated and forcing down glasses of water, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? I love water, but it feels like I'm forcing it when I try to drink it in large amounts. And now I know why, and I can't wait to share that today with you, our listeners.
And we've heard it before, in order to be your healthiest you must drink 8 cups of water per day. And you already know that, but for many of us, it's so true, and it can make you feel so much better. So hear me out. Do you often experience symptoms like headaches, fatigue, irritability, digestive issues, and muscle soreness? What if your symptoms can be relieved by drinking more water? I love this quote that says, "You aren't sick, you aren't tired, you're just dehydrated." I know that personally, when I make a conscious effort to drink more water, I always feel better. And it makes sense because water is crucial for nearly every system of our body.
A neat way that I heard, it really helps to explain the significance of water is when we remind ourselves that we're on a planet mainly comprised of water, right? And we have a replenishing supply of water falling onto this earth as rain. And even our bodies are mostly made up of water. Our muscles are around 75% water. Our blood is 80 to 90% water. And our lungs are even 90% water. What? Even our bones are around 25% water. That's crazy.
So we're basically just water. I mean, you guys, water is actually the ultimate brain food. It comprises greater than 75% of our brain, making it essential for memory, mood, and motivation. And if you're going to need to concentrate for long periods of time, you want to keep water handy to help you stay refreshed, hydrated, and focused. So one study found that students who brought water to tests did better on their exams. How cool is that?
That is a cool observation. It makes you wonder, are they just like the kind of students that study more because they're concerned about their health and drink water? Or do they do better on the test because they're not distracted by sugary soda consumption and the influence caffeine can have on the brain, or what? But we do know that when brain cells are dehydrated, meaning like your body's actually dehydrated, our brain cells literally shrink. So maybe that's why some experts believe that water is critical in preventing Alzheimer's disease and all kinds of advanced aging in the brain. And this gets even more complicated when you learn that older adults have trouble cueing and receiving the thirst signals that happen between our brain and our body. The elderly have to learn to drink regularly when they're not thirsty, because the mechanisms that tell them that they're thirsty are going to change as they age. Older people feel less thirsty, and it doesn't help that they don't want to run to the bathroom more often, especially if they're having trouble with mobility. And this is why the elderly are more likely to suffer from dehydration without any warning signs.
I mean, this is one of the reasons it is so important for us to cover today's topic. Hydration is really hot right now because there are 2 main camps that come from a different school of thought. One camp that I can relate to most believes that we should pre-hydrate by drinking our 8 cups of water a day, versus a growing camp who believes that you should only drink when thirsty.
It can be a complicated topic, that's for sure, especially when even the researchers and the experts can't agree on the best strategy. And it's difficult to test real life optimal water intake in a scientific controlled setting. There are just way too many variables that they can't control. It's just like nutrition testing. I mean, the research is really hard to do. So let's talk about that drink to thirst point of view that you mentioned. I've heard a lot about that in the field of ancestral health, where I was certified to be a health coach. This is really something that's promoted a lot, the drink to thirst perspective. It's a relatively new way of thinking because it started in the 90s when they realized that there were far worse dangers when we overhydrate or drink excessive amounts of water. And we're going to talk about that more in the next episode. But there are a few issues with that drink to thirst strategy that can't be ignored. As women, for instance, we lose our ability to send and receive those thirst signals when we're in the high hormonal phases of our cycle. And we lose those signals during the times of high stress, even during exercise, which is a form of stress.
Geez, and to think how many of us are living with high stress every day, or how many times a year we cycle through those high hormone phases, we don't even realize we're thirsty.
I mean, I'm definitely one of those women. I always say I'm not thirsty. I'll go through meals without even drinking anything. And I don't need a glass of water. I just don't want anything. But this research was a really big wake-up call for me. Women and stressed adults aren't the only ones that have to worry about unintentional dehydration. But children also may not recognize the need to drink fluids during exercise or sports, or when it's really hot and they're sweating, or just having an increase in physical activity. You know, the same goes for active adults. Anyone in excessively hot or sweaty conditions, even harsh cold conditions, those surprising temperature changes are stressful. They can force you to require more water and more electrolytes, but you may not even have the thirst signals firing properly. And this reminds me of what I was just mentioning about the elderly. If they simply increase their water intake because they're told to, but then they're eating a limited or bland diet, like maybe their doctor told them to cut back on sodium, well, they would have to be especially careful not to be in sweaty conditions because their salt and electrolyte levels can get way too low really quickly and without warning, especially if they're consuming too much water and there's not a good balance there, because salt and water really come together in perfect balance in our body. Sodium, potassium, water, all of those, they need to be, not in more in one direction than the other. They need to be balanced.
Good point, Marisa. So the composition of your water, specifically the amount of salt and carbohydrates, plays a major role in hydration and your capacity to actually absorb the water you're drinking. And your kidneys need to be functioning properly in order to absorb and utilize your water intake and sodium levels to find that safe and harmonious balance. But most of us don't think of water as containing salt and carbohydrates, right? So next week's episode will really help us to understand that better. Okay, so what comes to mind now about the benefits of adequate daily water intake is that water also helps us digest food, transport nutrients, and flush toxins and waste out of the body. So in the large intestine, water binds with fiber to increase the bulk of your stools and make elimination easier. When you don't drink enough water and fluids, the colon actually pulls water from your stools and increases your risk of constipation. No fun.
No, I could just imagine how many people would be so relieved to find out that just drinking more water can help eliminate their constipation problem. I mean, it doesn't work for everyone, but it does work for a lot of people.
Exactly. And you want to know something else? Water also boosts metabolism. So one study found that drinking 16 ounces of water upped calorie burning 30% in 10 minutes, and the effect lasted greater than 30 minutes. And in another study, dieters who drank half a liter of water before meals lost 44% more weight over a period of 12 weeks.
Whoa.
I know. Here are so many more reasons why water is wonderful. So let's talk about cancer. So it's really important to drink plenty of water because it can protect against some types of cancer. So research has found that the greater your water intake, the lower the incidence of bladder cancer. And one possible reason could be that urinating more frequently is going to prevent the buildup of bladder carcinogens. So staying hydrated might also reduce the risk of colon cancer and breast cancer. So moving on to joints, water is going to protect our joints and our ligaments. So water keeps the cartilage around our joints hydrated and supple, just ensuring that our joints stay lubricated. And it also is going to protect our spinal cord and our tissues, keeping us really healthy from the inside out. So cartilage, which is that rubbery material that coats our bones, that's about 85% water, you guys. So to keep this protective material healthy, we need to stay hydrated.
Gosh, immediately what comes to mind is bone broth. Because when you make bone broth with filtered water, of course, and then you add back in all those minerals and collagen that we're getting from the bones and the cartilage when you're making the bone broth, you end up with such a nourishing water, if you want to call it, that's good enough for a meal replacement. But it's even useful enough to make thousands of different homemade meals. You know, I just love bone broth. It's like everything. And listeners, you can learn how to make it and all the benefits by listening to our older episodes 19 and number 20.
Oh, I love bone broth. Yeah, but moving on to more water benefits, water is also linked to heart health. So research has found that consuming more water means a lower risk of death from coronary heart disease. And get this, risk of death rises when intake of high energy fluids, so think soda and juice, increases.
Yeah, I think that's where these associations really shine true, because they're really correlations. Like they don't know for sure, how that's related, but they do see these trends across the board regarding water. And if you're drinking water, you're not drinking something sugary or something made of empty calories. And even though we don't think of sugary or diet soda as something that contributes to heart disease, we would just be fooling ourselves to think that they're safe. Because when something is high in sugar or even highly processed or full of chemicals or something they make in a laboratory, like with diet soda, for instance, then it's inflammatory. And inflammation is what really drives that slow cascade that leads to heart disease.
Oh my gosh, I tell everyone inflammation is that root cause of chronic disease. I mean, it's the worst. But moving on to something else. So how about we talk about alcohol? One more thing I really did want to mention, if it wasn't obvious enough, is that, water is going to help prevent hangovers. So a hangover refers to just unpleasant symptoms experienced after drinking alcohol. And alcohol, if you guys did not know, is a diuretic. So it makes you lose more water than you take in. So this in turn is going to lead to dehydration. And dehydration can cause symptoms like thirst, fatigue, headache, and dry mouth. So a good way to reduce hangovers is to drink a glass of water in between drinks and to have at least one big glass of water before going to bed.
I totally agree. I mean, we all need that reminder because when you're in the moment, you're having some wine with your friends, you might go 2 glasses and only take a sip of water here or there. And sometimes you even have to ask a server for it if you're not home. And you might even wrap up the night. You got this soft glaze over your eyes. You're ready to just hit the sack. And you forget how much you need to replenish with water before you go to sleep. I mean, you don't want to overdo it with water and force yourself to drink a half gallon, just because you drank that night. It's probably too much for the kidneys to keep up with at once since you're still getting rid of the alcohol too. But something we'll get in the next week episode is about that drinking too much water. But you want to drink at least 1 glass every hour when you're consuming alcohol. And that includes right before you go to bed, I mean, a general way to tell if you're adequately hydrated is to just look at the color of your urine. If it's completely clear, some say that you're likely over-consuming water or, risking overhydration. But if your urine is yellow, especially dark yellow, you'll need to add more water into your diet and more fresh fruits and vegetables because they are filled with so much water. And this is something to note if you're new to taking supplements and you end up taking B vitamins. B vitamin supplements are going to turn your urine like a neon yellow. Like you will turn around and be shocked when you see the color. And that doesn't mean you're dehydrated. That's just what happens because it's a water soluble vitamin and it happens to be a beautiful neon yellow color. But I mean, there's no denying if you're dehydrated when you look at your urine, if it's dark yellow or orange, like you really got to get in on that water consumption.
I mean, this might be too much information, but I just bought a new multivitamin and it indeed has like 100% of my like daily vitamin B needs. And that did happen. And I was really freaking out for a second.
Yeah.
Like, this is not normal. But then I was like, oh, wait, it's just the multivitamin.
Yep. And it can even be like pinkish purple when you eat a lot of beets.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so we should probably talk about some signs that you're actually dehydrated, especially if you're athletic and an active person. So if you're even mildly dehydrated, you're going to notice a difference in your performance.
Yep, it's not everyone, but when studies are conducted to measure various reactions in active adults who are mildly dehydrated, they notice all different symptoms like reduced endurance, increased fatigue, a reduced ability to adjust to body temperature needs, and they experience reduced motivation and increased perceived effort, like the workout just seems harder to them.
The cool thing is, though, that just rehydrating with water and electrolytes can actually reverse the effects quickly.
Yeah, and that's not the only area where performance suffers, though, from just mild dehydration, something we may not even know is there, but this actually disrupts your mood and your brain function too. It's especially becoming of concern in like the very, very young population, the very old population, and anyone that's in hot climates or exercising and sweating vigorously. You see, the mild dehydration reduces concentration, alertness, and short-term memory. That's in children tested between 10 and 12 years old. Even young adults between 18 and 25 years old, and older adults that were tested between 50 and 82 years old are all experiencing these different reactions. And it just depends on the circumstances and individuals. But a really interesting thing I learned is that you got to try and just trust your senses when you're actually drinking water. Does it feel like you're forcing it down? I mean, I don't mean like if you don't like the taste of water, that's different. Sorry, but you need to just get used to it. But I mean, if you feel like you're drinking more than you need to in a given moment, the brain's decision to start or stop drinking and to choose the appropriate drink is all made before we even drink the fluid, before it can even get past our mouth. The taste buds in our mouth send messages to our brain about the nature and especially the salt of the ingested fluid, the composition of the water. And then responses are triggered as if the incoming water had already reached our bloodstream, even though it didn't yet. So these are like so-called anticipatory reflexes. So if your brain is telling you that drinking water is hard or the amount of water you're trying to drink is hard, it's probably a sign that you might be taking in too much water just at that time, or that you have an imbalance regarding your electrolytes and there's something out of balance.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I hear these lame excuses all the time from my clients. You know, you may not want to drink water because you always forget, you just don't like it, or you just prefer other beverages like soda or coffee or something like that. But listen, you guys, if it's too tough to remember to drink your water, just fill up a large bottle, preferably a 32-ounce one, at the beginning of the day and keep it at your desk. It's really hard to avoid it if it's right there. And drink it 2 times and you've already reached your daily goal. So you can also set reminders for yourself to drink, or just get a really cool water bottle that you really like and carry it around with you everywhere and just sip it constantly when you are thirsty. And if you do already enjoy coffee or tea, just make a promise to yourself that you'll always follow the coffee with an 8-ounce serving of water within the hour, since that can be somewhat dehydrating. So here are 7 more tricks to hit your daily water targets, and that's going to be around 72 ounces for women and 100 ounces for men. So one thing that you can do is infuse it with really fun flavors. So you can try a mojito flavor, which is just a little bit of lime and mint, or something that I like to call a sweet tart flavor, which is strawberry and lemon. Another thing that you can do to just hit your daily water target is to start early. So you can add on a mug of hot water with fresh lemon alongside your usual morning coffee. I really love hot lemon water. It's just that perfect morning hydration. So how exactly do you make hot lemon water? All you do is cut a lemon into 4 wedges, and every morning squeeze a wedge into 8 to 16 ounces of almost boiling water and throw the whole wedge into the mug. You can also add a few shakes of cayenne for just like a real wake me up. I really like to just see the sunny yellow wedge floating around in there in the morning. It's just like a really nice little morning ritual. Another thing that you can do to just hit your daily water target is to make something called super soda. It's like a soda knockoff. So all you do is add a shot of 100% juice to a glass of sparkling water. Another thing that you could do is track it. You could keep a tally of how much water you drink with a really cool hydration reminder. I actually like these 3 apps. One of them is Plant Nanny, another is Aqua Alert, and another is iHydrate. Another thing that you could do is get spicy. So add hot spice like cayenne pepper, hot sauce, jalapenos, hot giardiniera to meals to increase thirst. Another thing you could do is brew it. You could drink unsweetened hot or iced tea like mushroom tea, chai tea, green tea, hibiscus tea. And last but not least, you can eat it. The water-rich fruits and veggies like cucumber and watermelon and strawberries contain vitamins and minerals the body needs for optimal hydration levels. So eating them can sometimes rehydrate us so much more efficiently than just drinking water alone.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there's really so many experts who agree that we need 64 ounces to 100 ounces of water a day. And they each have their own reasoning, their experiences, and strategies to explain that. But one great way to really understand the reason water intake is such an important topic in health today is partly because of the shift westernized nations like America have made towards consuming large proportions of processed, sugary, or diet beverages. Even just the processed food intake changed the way that we consume water because we're not consuming fresh foods that are dense in water content. You know, the woman behind hydrationfoundation.org believes that just in the last 5 years or so, our need for water has increased dramatically just because of the reduction in fresh fruits and vegetables in our daily diet and the increase in those non-water beverages. So it kind of makes sense. I mean, there's this school of thought from the ancestral health scene that really talks about drink to thirst. And we would think back to our ancestors, like a lot of places even today that have indigenous people living, they don't get access to clean drinking water as often as we do, of course. And our ancestors definitely wouldn't and would go long times without fresh water. And we might equate that to, so we don't need that today. Our bodies weren't designed for that. But then you think about the ways that we're eating and the pharmaceuticals we're taking and, you know, a lot of things that our body is taking in that's new and more toxic on the body. And then a lot of the things we're not taking in, like the fresh fruits and vegetables that are rich in water. So we can't really compare ourselves to our ancient ancestors in that way because too many other factors have changed. And that's why I think our water intake and our fruit and vegetable intake really needs to increase today. Now, there is one water fanatic that should be mentioned here today on this episode because this guy spent much of his career as an MD trying to convince the medical and scientific communities that water is the cure for all things. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, and he's no longer living today, but he's the author of so many different books on water, and he's published some papers on his work using water to cure different ailments. His name is Dr. Fredun Batmandahuj. Dr. B. Well, the book I tried to read written by him is called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And I say I tried to read it because he's really fanatical, has all these extreme claims and obsessive ideology that he delivers in such a way that really recruits criticism in his field and reactions from others that would call him a quack. And I'll share with you some of the things that I learned. I think you might want to hear them and then decide if you'd like to research the topic further to learn more for yourself. So Dr. B claims that most of the malfunction in our genes and our DNA is because our cells have an inadequate supply of water to efficiently perform their obligations in our body. Dr. B says he treated more than 3,000 peptic ulcer sufferers with just water alone, and he published this report in the Journal of Clinical Gastroenterology in June of 1983. But oddly enough, this whole study was completed while he was a political prisoner in a famous Iranian prison during the Iranian Revolution. So I don't think it compares to how studies are conducted today. But anyways, that's an interesting fact. Now, Dr. B says that medicine and wellness efforts focus on solutes, or the solids that we intake, like vitamins and minerals and medications and pharmaceuticals to treat our disease or to prevent it, and food to regulate all the functions in the body. But he says it's the solvent or the water content that carries those solutes, those nutrients, the food, and regulates all the functions in the body. So he's basically saying we have been putting our focus in the wrong direction. And he suggests that even high blood pressure is a result of chronic dehydration. And that's why the body is holding on to sodium, because it desperately is trying to hold on to the water. He goes on to explain how dehydration is the cause of so many different ailments, and even more so to explain that rehydration is just the cure. He says any pain or discomfort is a thirst signal from the body and from your brain. These include dyspeptic pain in the middle or upper middle part of your stomach, usually accompanied by other digestive symptoms like heartburn and ulcers or gastritis. He also says pain like rheumatoid arthritis or low back pain or leg pain when you're walking, even migraines and hangover headaches, ulcerative colitis pain and constipation and false appendicitis pain. Those are all thirst signals from your body. He says these pains should be treated with regular adjustment to no less than 2.5 quarts of water in 24 hours for a few days prior to the regular use of pain-relieving medications. Otherwise, you can risk general damage that's irreversible. And for pains that persisted for years, he suggests you make sure your kidneys work first. Make sure that they can make sufficient urine so that they don't retain too much water. Your urine output should really be measured against your water intake to make sure they're matching up. And Dr. B's overall solution was an absolute minimum of 6 to 8 8-ounce glasses of water a day. And alcohol with water and coffee and tea don't count. Anything with caffeine doesn't count. And the best times to drink water, he says, are 30 minutes before eating and after digestion, about 2.5 hours after a meal. And he says 2 more glasses should be taken around the heaviest meal or before you go to bed. And a good rule of thumb for heavier people is to drink 1/2 ounce of water per pound of body weight. And so that's 200-pound person drinking 100 ounces of water. And he agrees. He says your urine should be colorless. He says colorless. So not even yellow and never orange. Now, when you go to Amazon.com to see the reviews on some of the books he's written, they're mostly written by just raving fans, individuals claiming that this water theory saved them from their disease and from their history with poor health, thanks to the advice in his book. I mean, there's a lot, like thousands of 5-star reviews on almost all of his books. But if you dig enough and you look at those 1-star and 2-star reviews, there are other medical professionals and people claiming that this is total quackery and that it's irresponsible for Dr. B to say this if it's not backed by science, and that it really shouldn't be published or promoted as a cure. So I just wanted to share that with everyone and leave that with you to decide if it's something you want to try out. I mean, the amount of water he's suggesting is not crazy. And when he gave examples of, these people healing their ulcers, for instance, he was just giving them 1 glass of water in an hour, or like a pint of water every hour or 2. And so it was not a large amount of water. And he said that people would feel better within like 40 minutes and their symptoms were completely gone in 3 hours. So it's like one of those things, like, how can I not share it? I'm not telling you to do anything radical, but just be careful not to overdo it, and check out the book if you are interested in seeing if water can help you.
Oh, Dr. B. I mean, I really do like one of his books titled You're Not Sick, You're Just Thirsty, kind of like the quote that I shared from the get-go, just because, I mean, I know for myself, like, whenever I do drink more water, I really do always feel better. I don't know about going to the extreme in the sense of, water fasting to heal disease, but I don't know. You never know. Like, I think I personally have to do more research on that too. So to just conclude, drinking water, it does not have to be a chore. I really think it's one of the easiest things that you can do to feel just a little bit better. So stay tuned for next week's episode 28, as we shine some light on the negative effects of drinking too much water. We warn you about what's hiding in your tap water. We'll talk about alkaline and hydration water, water filters, and we'll provide you with more reasons to add lemon or sea salt to your water. So stay tuned for that episode.
Cool. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to share our podcast with a friend and leave us a review if you're using iTunes. And you can reach Jessica and I on our Facebook page at the Foundation of Wellness Podcast, or send us a DM. We are on Instagram now. Yay. So you can find us by searching the Foundation of Wellness, and it should pop right up. So thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.